The next recipe that we're going to demonstrate for you, which I think is this, I think we're going to do the skillet asparagus with grapefruit next, is another kind of recipe in the book. You don't think, oh, skillet asparagus with grapefruit, that sounds so Charleston. But actually, it's a recipe that romances the season we're in right now. It's been a little cold, so the asparagus is a little later than usual. But this is just the time when the asparagus is coming up on John's Island, like the tenderest, slenderest asparagus. And when the grapefruit in trees downtown are starting to fall off and they're going out. So this was just an idea to bring together that sort of, I don't know, early March mojo, and also give it a little bit of like anticipatory, like craving summer and the grill kind of flavor. And basically what we do, skillet asparagus just means we're skillet grilling the asparagus. And it's super easy to do.
You want a skillet?
Yeah, can you grab me that and just put a small amount, a teaspoon of canola in there, maybe two. These asparagus are nice, you know, it's sort of...
What's canola smell like?
Nothing, hopefully. Unless it's rancid, right? I'm just going to trim the ends off of these asparagus. And once that gets hot, I'm going to do them in the pan. I'm probably going to do them in 2 batches in this pan, just so that they're not crowded. Because the idea here is to get that grilled, charred exterior, smoky exterior on the asparagus. At the same time I'm doing that, I'm going to be supreming a grapefruit, or segmenting a grapefruit. I love that the words for doing that are so different, like segmenting, you think worms, and you think earth, and supreme.
I don't think worms.
And in cooking school they say supreme, so cutting grapefruit supremes. But the way you do that, does everyone know how to do this? Or I mean, it's just super easy. It's one of those things when I learned it, I was just like, I was so thrilled.
Show, don't
just
tell.
Cut off the top of the grapefruit so you can see like a round circle.
What'd you think of the cheese?
Yeah, let's get some
cheese?
feedback on that.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh my God, that is out of control.
Yes? Yes, ma'am.
When you're doing asparagus, is there a difference between the little skinny ones and the big fat ones?
There shouldn't be. I mean, they look different, don't they? And they look like the bigger ones would be tougher, but it doesn't add up that way. It's not as simple as that. And so the only way to do it is to try it. And I happen to sort of like the flavor of raw asparagus, so I usually like sneak a nibble in the grocery store. And obviously playing around with this end will show you just how like crisp and, you know, well preserved it is. Like that looks wet and nice, and yeah, it's good all the way through. So, but it's not as, I think it's more a freshness factor.
So, was anyone just like, oh
this
my
is
God,
really
that
sweet.
cheese thing is out of control, like bring me back to kind of... Because
Well, it also has some acidity in it from the beer and the wine and the, you know, lemon juice, and so that sourness together with the dairy product is like risky. You're treading the line.
I want to ask you about that crystal hot sauce.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you get that just at any grocery store?
You should be able to, yes. It's out of Louisiana.
if there are a
Or
couple
Texas.
varieties,
But
it'll
it's
be one
the
of them.
same Tabasco area. Just, you know, it's cheaper than Tabasco. It probably doesn't have the barrel aging the same way, but it's every bit as good. It's great on fried chicken.
And on the cheese, like, do we need to let it age before we serve it, like an hour or two?
No, but as with anything with garlic in it, it'll get more sort of just rounder and more well permeated if you do let it marinate a little bit.
Yeah, the flavors will meld more and get more intense.
You demonstrate
Our
and I'll
recipe
talk.
tester said that she found the cheese dip, the Henry's cheese spread, a little too aggressive. She recommended not putting it in the book.
She is a Yankee out in the woods of Vermont, which is the best thing you want for a Southern cookbook in a tester, because you know they have to give you the sort of feedback, the dumb questions. So like, you know, you say blue crab, can I use Dungeness crab instead? Because I can't, and it's like, all of the things that you didn't anticipate.
Or
For a cookbook aimed at a national audience, you want that kind of, perspective. And all of ours are aimed at conversion. We want people in Seattle to
Total
cook
conversion.
Southern every other night because they can't resist.
well,
It
we
tastes
think
so
Southern food is
good.
really going to take over the world, and there's so much evidence that it already has. So why not?
There is a little bit of
why not go
evidence it
all
already
out?
has.
So I've just put the helps to have a decent ventilation when you're doing this, or you can also do it on the grill. Asparagus on the grill is one of those things that's difficult to do because you need one of those perforated grill pans. Because even if you try to do it, by like crossing the asparagus, I did this in
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
that was
I
so
did this
annoying.
during Thanksgiving. I grilled asparagus at Thanksgiving and I didn't have a grill pan, and I would say my loss ratio was like a third. And
Went down into the coals.
I happened to be I happened in Thanksgiving to be cooking on a French in St. Bart's.
Oh yeah.
I checked out from
Feeling so-
Southern Thanksgiving to St. Bart's to cook for some friends, and that's enough salt. Green beans were, what was it? It was 2 kilos was 80 euros. I mean,
$100.
yeah. So it was really hard to lose that third. So you can see they're
They
already
don't grow
blackening a good
asparagus
bit.
there.
Oh, and the thing I forgot is I partly cover them because at the same time you're blackening them, you also want them to cook through. Here. I usually take a smaller one, so it's like, just sort of partially cover them, so they're at the same time they're blackening them, they're cooking through. So doing the
Oh, I should be doing that.
supremes. Can everyone see? Is this board?
Here, move it to the middle. Because there's an overhead
So what
shot.
I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knife, and where the pith meets the real flesh, I'm just going to cut down and sort of follow the curvature of the fruit and take it off there. And again. And again. And I'm kind of losing, you can see I'm losing a lot of fruit,
Not a ton. You're doing
a little
okay.
bit, to the peel, but you can use that as juice, and we want that juice because we're going to use that for our dressing. And then so you take this guy and you trim those parts you missed. Do you want to get on my asparagus and flip them?
Sure.
Or do you want to get on that?
I'll do this.
Can you supreme that over
Because I
there?
have a very strong feeling about this, because I've learned that you cut down right along the line between the segments, and you don't have to push very hard. Probably shouldn't. And then what is it? I go counterclockwise, which would be this
You always
way.
have to remind yourself.
Yeah, I always have to write. It's counterclockwise, if you're right-handed, makes it go easier. But you cut down between the two segments, and then
So I'm gonna.
you don't have to do it perfectly. You should probably do it over this bowl, because there's going to be some juice loss.
So I'm gonna take
These are beautiful grapefruit.
and just put them on this pan because they'll continue to cook a good bit, and I don't want them mushy. I hope none of you request mushy asparagus. My recently deceased grandmother-in-law, my wife's grandmother, if the asparagus didn't fold over her finger like a noodle,
It was
not-
undercooked.
it was not to be eaten. But I feel differently.
So this is a nice trick that you can actually perform on oranges and lemons and limes, sort of microsurgery, but it's a cool effect to flake a little bit of lime into a salad and have that burst of flavor without any of the pith or, anything else. It's
Oh, you know what? I forgot a step, which was that the garnish on this dish is grapefruit zest, and I was supposed to zest it before I cut into it with a microplane, because I think that's the easiest. It's easy to zest with one of these. Does everyone know a microplane? Everyone's familiar with that? What's cool is that there's so many ways to skin the cat when you're zesting, and another one is
clockwise is the way to go.
Another one is you just take this and where's my clips now? What have I done with it?
I
I
stole
always lose my tools.
it. Ted is a messier cook, but he insists on a cleaner kitchen. Like, I'll clean up as I go and leave all the dishes and dirty things out overnight because I don't want to harsh my buzz, and I want to go to like enjoy my meal, enjoy the company, go to sleep without any like drudgery, and then wake up and deal with it in the morning. Ted would rather create an unholy mess and then clean it up before he goes to bed, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Like the guests have gone, you know, you've got that adrenaline rush going, and you turn on some great music, you have a nightcap, and you do the dishes, and you put it back right, so you don't have to wake up the next morning to a dirty kitchen.
I think there's some
That's
satisfaction
the
in
great
like
thing about kitchens is that they're very personal spaces, and what you try to make it work. So I'm cutting the pith from this zest so that I can then cut it into very thin threads.
All right, I'm done.
And the reason I'm cutting the pith from the skin is because it's bitter and does not taste good as a garnish or as anything really.
So I'm left with this husk of the poor grapefruit that I've eviscerated, and it's still got some juice. See, so you don't want to let that go to waste. So you just squeeze it because we're going to use that in the dressing. How are your asparagus is doing?
They're doing great.
Good. Any questions
Any questions? You guys are really
on
quiet.
any subject? Very well behaved.
Very well
group.
behaved.
Betsy,
Um,
any questions?
Yes. Wow, you're impressive.
We hear you're the star of this show.
I love this place. I absolutely
This
love
is our first day in this store. We've done several demonstrations in the one in Charleston, and we're just so delighted to be here. This one is more elbow room, real
Yeah.
fancy. Oh my gosh.
super fancy.
Loving
So
it.
here are two kinds of zest, and you can decide which one you like better. When these dry out, the threads, like thread-like zest, they curl up, and it's kind of pretty. You should always make pretty food. I mean, what you think is pretty, not what other people think is pretty. So wait.
So you're gonna say something?
So, how are you doing with the dressing?
I've done my bit. This is your recipe.
All right.
That was the agreement.
So, what Matt's done is he's nicely segmented this fruit. We have a little bit of juice in the bowl, you can see, and we're going to use that in our vinaigrette. And he's just squeezing the extra. I don't think he really needs to, but
Okay.
that's his thing.
Extra fingerprints.
Extra fingerprints. That's right. And so I'm just going to basically make a vinaigrette with this. I've got, where is my stuff? I've got these nice loose fingerprints. That's for that. 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 2 tablespoons white wine vinegar, a teaspoon or so of Dijon mustard. I love these silicone bowls. You can really like wrench on them. And I'm just going to whisk that. Yes.
So, some of the recipes in the new book spring from just like our loving the ingredients, and this asparagus with the grapefruit is one of them. We were in the most intensive period of recipe development. It was in the winter, and it was citrus season, and so we thought of everything we could possibly do with these delicious backyard grapefruits that our friends had in their garden right around the corner, and we raided it regularly. But even the grapefruit leaves are so wonderful to work with, and almost no one, even our friend, recognizes it. That the leaves themselves, if you crush them, they have this nice perfumey smell, and they're like kaffir lime leaves, if you know the leaf that's used frequently in Thai cooking. sort of the definitive flavor. That and coconut milk and lemongrass all together are just this like exotic mind blower. Well, this exotic mind blower, grapefruit leaf, is in pretty much every other person's backyard, in places where citrus grows. And same for lemon and orange and lime. If you have a citrus tree, just try crushing the leaf and smelling it. And if you enjoy that flavor, then toss one of those in your next, coconut Thai curry thing.
So I'm spooning.
Or steep it in vodka or gin, as we do in our drinks chat.
I'm spooning,
Limoncello.
I'm spooning the vinaigrette over just so I don't bathe it in the dressing. But you can see here we are, and I have my zest. I have my two different kinds of zest. Where's my pepper grinder? And you can see, like, I've even just put this on, a baking sheet, and it's a pretty elegant dish. You can imagine it on your most beautiful platter, just serving it to someone and just being like, yay. I love that.
Ruby grapefruit if possible. Well, the yellow type is fine, but
Right.
and in fact the backyard one that we favor in terms of flavor is just a dull yellow. It doesn't even look very good, but it tastes great. So
this guy?
got to roll with
Sure.
that. So we, there's historical sources for some of the recipes. The Henry's cheese spread would be one. I mean, one of the things is so many cookbooks with the word Charleston in the title. There aren't a ton, but the ones that are out there, Charleston receipts aside, we'll talk about that later, tend to view like ye olde times as the times. Like that's the most important time in Charleston's food history. And we were clear from the start, like every time is fair game. The 1990s, yesterday, 1790s, 1520s, like 1820, it just doesn't matter. Like to us, it's all inspiring source material.
Well, it's so fun to imagine how, for example, like the mid-century, what some people perceive to be the mid-century Bible of Charleston cooking is the Junior League Cookbook Charleston Receipts, the 1951 amazing green cover, such a great thing. But can you imagine what Sarah Rutledge, who wrote The Carolina Housewife in 1847, would have thought of Charleston Receipts? Ketchup probably not happening like in the way they knew it. Cream of mushroom soup, no. So,
To be fair, there's precious little cream of mushroom soup
there's
in
very
Charleston
little.
receipts.
But it is making fun. But
post-war cooking, so there's certain shortcuts, and the only real purlieu recipe in Charleston receipts, called Faber's Pulot, is what most downtown Charlestonians would call a purlieu, or called for 1 7-pound rooster and a pound of margarine. So, and it was the only, a classic purlieu. It's an ancient technique where you actually cook the proteins and the fats with the rice. You calibrate the water and the cooking time and everything so that you cook them all together, and when the rice is done, it's absorbed all the flavor from mostly chicken or poultry. In the Middle East, back, the dawn of civilization, it was sheep tail and mutton and stuff like that. But that technique, came to the Southeast through Northern Africa, and probably with the slave trade from Western Africa to Charleston, where that technique is just so central to like the rice culture. And yet, in Charleston receipts, it's 400 and something recipes, there's only one true purlieu recipe, Faber's Purlieu, only recipe in the book credited to an African American, Samuel Faber, who was well known about town butler and cook and character, and so we felt we needed to have a purlieu recipe in a Charleston cookbook, and so we adapted ours from his, which is basically tomato, a lot of black pepper, a little bit of oregano, almost Italian in certain respects. Pretty basic, but we adapted it to a hen. No roosters available by conventional sources, and we omitted the margarine. And made up for it with a little butter or something like that.